There's a lot of changes at the moment with the tax regime.
From 1 July 2027 onwards, you're going to be taxed at 47%. You're giving essentially half of that to the ATO.
Do you feel that $3 million is going to be enough for us to retire?
I think $3 million by the time we hit retirement age won't be much at all. SMSFs can be a very tax-effective vehicle, especially as you approach retirement age. Instead of paying $470,000 in tax in your personal name, you'd be paying $100,000 in the SMSF. Investing in your personal name from 1 July 2027 becomes incredibly tax inefficient. As a very simple example, right? If you were to buy Bitcoin in July 2027, hold it for a few years and end up making $1 million capital gain, just a round number for simplicity. Under the new rules, you're going to be taxed at 47%. Whereas same scenario, but invested through a SMSF, that SMSF, if it makes $1 million capital gain, so long as it's held the asset for longer than 12 months, it'll get a 1/3 discount on that gain, bringing the effective tax rate down to 10%. So instead of paying $470,000 in tax in your personal name, you'd be paying $100,000 in the SMSF.
Everyone's talking about travel rule. Everyone was talking about the budget. Yeah, look, I mean, there's a lot of changes at the moment with the tax regime. There's compliance changes in the Australian space. We're seeing a lot of shake-up with the government at the moment. I've brought you here, Oliver Woodbridge from Tax On Chain, to talk about this. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
And I mean, let's get straight into it. If someone tells you they're trying to fly under the radar in 2026, let's say they're trying to avoid these tax complications, what do you tell them?
So my first question to them would be, why are you trying to fly under the radar? And if their goal is to simply, minimize their tax obligations, well, then there are plenty of legitimate ways you can do that through good tax planning and structuring. The reality is the ATO has already a lot of visibility over taxpayers' crypto transactions, so that's not really changing a great deal.
I think it changes more on the exchange side, on our side, where we have to report more of things happening through a system called the travel rule and VASP. So we become this exchange that is VASP registered, and we have to report everything that's happening for your transactions. Or it's not really, I guess is there real friction for that you see on your side for this? Or the customers that want to fly under the radar, in a sense, like, they're still the same customers as before?
Yeah. Nothing really changes from a tax perspective. And the reality is the ATO, if you've been trading on a credible exchange, the ATO already knows that just through the existing reporting obligations that exchanges have, as well as, blockchain analytics that gets better every year. So if you're into crypto, the ATO is going to know it. And what taxpayers really need to understand is that, the ATO is not monitoring every single transaction you make. Like, that's just unrealistic and completely impractical. What they're really doing is using sophisticated data matching to ensure that taxpayers are reporting income in line with the lifestyle that they're living. So
makes sense. Yeah.
Where taxpayers will get caught out is if they've made a lot of money in crypto, and the lifestyle they're living, luxury purchases, boats, cars, property, large bank transfers, that doesn't line up with what they're reporting in their tax returns. And it's that data matching, which is what will get them caught out in the end.
I think from my perspective as well, as an exchange, what I have noticed is there is a little bit more friction now, because the compliance layer is a lot more demanding from our side to uphold and to make sure. How is it from your side in terms of all the accounting work you have to do around that?
From the accounting and tax side, it doesn't really change much. If people want to move their assets off chain, they're free to do so. And holding your assets in a wallet or on an exchange doesn't change the tax implications of doing so. So from our side, nothing really changes. I think it's more the exchange side, which is what you're seeing, where the sort of added complexity and friction is going to occur.
What do we want to do from here? If travel rule is the topic and the focus of everyone at the moment, what do you feel is the most optimized way for someone to continue investing in crypto as an alternate asset?
Yeah, so I guess with the travel rule being front of mind for everyone, they're all thinking about, where should they physically hold their assets, and has that changed much, on an exchange, off an exchange, what controls do the government now have? But I think the more important question is, what legal structures you should be holding these assets in. Because now with some of these budget changes having been legislated last week, holding assets in your personal name from 1 July 2027 is going to be very tax ineffective. So being structured correctly is going to have a significant impact on your overall sort of investment strategy going forward.
And I think that particular date is quite important, because anything that you hold, not just crypto investments, is any type of investment that's classed with the new budget to come out. Anything from that 1st of July is now part of the new system for capital gains. So at that point in time, everything you've earned or lost in the past is calculated at an older system, and the new amounts. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so from 1 July 2027 onwards, there will be a minimum 30% capital gains tax implemented on all capital gains. The 50% CGT discount is being removed and being replaced with cost-based indexation, inflation-adjusted indexation. But up until that date, any gains accrued up until 1 July 2027 are still taxed under the old regime. So accrued gains up until then will still be eligible for the 50% discount, so long as you have held the asset for 12 months. And then any gain accrued from that point onward, so take the market value from 1 July, and the gain from that point onward will be taxed under the new rules.
Sorry, just to get this clear in my head as well. So from the 1st of July that just passed, do we have the new system in place from then with the capital gains discount for any future from that point onwards? Or is it all coming into play next year on the 1st of July 2027?
So if you were to buy an asset today, although it's technically being taxed under the old rules, you wouldn't be able to utilize the 50% CGT discount, because you have to hold it for at least 12 months.
Got it.
Up until 1 July. So there's less than 12 months remaining now. So the last day you could have been eligible for the 50% discount was to buy on 30 June 2026.
I guess when it comes to an accountant, your job is to optimize a tax position. Talk to me about how it looks from a personal versus an SMSF sense.
Yeah. So, if we're thinking, the new
for the
rules,
future, I guess.
For the future. So, so investing in your personal name from 1 July 2027 becomes incredibly tax inefficient. As a very simple example, right? If you were to buy Bitcoin in July 2027, hold it for a few years, and end up making $1 million capital gain, just a round number for simplicity. Under the new rules, you're going to be taxed at 47%. You're giving essentially half of that to the ATO.
Wow.
Whereas same scenario, but invested through a SMSF, that SMSF, if it makes $1 million capital gain, so long as it's held the asset for longer than 12 months, it'll get a 1/3 discount on that gain, bringing the effective tax rate down to 10%. So instead of paying $470,000 in tax in your personal name, you'd be paying $100,000 in the SMSF. So that difference is obviously quite significant.
Absolutely. I think, in my opinion, it almost feels as though when you have an SMSF, it gives you the opportunity to become a long-term investor. It forces you to do so. But it almost feels as though the system is, maybe the government was trying to help us in that respect. Maybe they thought, you know what, SMSFs are built for long-term investing, and so is crypto. What do you reckon? Do you think they did that on purpose?
I don't know if they did that on purpose, but I think your point that SMSFs are long-term investment vehicles is absolutely spot on.
Yeah.
Superannuation it's essentially the longest investment horizon most Australians will ever have. So it really does give investors the opportunity to invest with that long-term sort of strategy in place, and that the trustees of SMSFs that tend to do the best are the ones that have that long-term investment horizon.
Yep.
And they're able. That long-term horizon allows them to sort of endure market volatility. They don't get emotional when there's a big downturn because they know, well, I can't touch this for another 20, 30, maybe even 40 years. So they're willing to endure that volatility. And then that also gives them the conviction to keep buying through those downturns, giving them really good entries into the market.
Yeah, I think that one of the cool structures of an SMSF as well is that you create an investment strategy when you first open your own. When you take control of your super fund, you are creating a strategy, and it basically outlines how you're going to invest that. If for someone who may not be an investor by right at all times, or is learning to invest, it kind of, because it kills the idea of being able to access the money immediately, you have to think long term, and it's like taking one complexity out of the equation. I guess the question that I've always thought to myself as well, because I hold an SMSF myself, is there any type of investor that an SMSF isn't right for with everything that's changing in Australia?
Yeah. So, I mean, generally speaking, anyone or most people can set up an SMSF, but that doesn't mean everyone should set up an SMSF. And where we see a lot of people, or especially new trustees of SMSFs, go wrong is they don't adopt that long-term investment horizon that you were talking about, and they see, or they use their SMSF or treat it as if it's just another personal trading account. So they'll overtrade, they'll chase narratives, and they'll just take on more risk than they otherwise really should be. And I think an important question that, you know, people should be asking themselves that are managing SMSFs is to just think, you know, the money I'm playing with is here to support my retirement. So are my investment decisions, you know, contributing to that long-term investment strategy?
What I feel is, though, it's also the other side of the thought process of people. In my opinion, people might also think super is such a long time away. I've got plenty of time to do it. Maybe I can make it big now, which is almost like, in my opinion, we're selling that dream, or not us, but the media is selling the dream of building someone's wealth very quickly, and then they have a tool to do it with more money now. So they might think, oh, you know what, I'll just have a punt at it as well.
Yeah, and you know, people's investment strategies will change depending on the point they are in their life. You know, someone who's in their 20s, you know, they're obviously going to be will have more appetite for risk compared to someone who's in their 50s or 60s approaching retirement, because that younger person has more time to recover from mistakes that they've made when it comes to the superannuation. Whereas if you're at or nearing retirement age, you really need to consider, you know, the risks that you're taking on.
Let's talk a bit about that retirement age as well. As an SMSF holder, maybe you're approaching that, or you have a super fund and you wanted to invest into cryptocurrency, so you open up an SMSF to do so. What does it look like? Is there any type of advantages that you believe people should consider?
Well, the main advantage of an SMSF when you're at retirement age is the fact that you can convert your SMSF or part of your SMSF into pension phase. The assets that you allocate to pension phase, any future capital gains you might realize or income generated from those assets is tax-free. SMSFs can be a very tax-effective vehicle, especially as you approach retirement age.
And talking about SMSFs, is there a skill and timing to sell down the assets inside crypto, any type of asset that you have there?
So when you are, you know, retired and your fund is in pension phase, you are required to draw out a minimum pension each year. Yep. So that starts at 4 or 5%, and then it'll increase as you get older.
Okay.
Those minimum pension repayments, they have to be paid in cash themselves. But if you are also of retirement age, you can make additional lump sum withdrawals, and those lump sum withdrawals don't necessarily need to be made in cash. What trustees will do who are in pension phase, or what some will do, is they'll keep a cash buffer inside the SMSF.
Interesting.
And so they'll keep a cash buffer inside the SMSF, and they'll use that cash buffer to draw down their minimum pension requirements each year, which means they don't have to be forced sellers if there is a market downturn, just to fund their pension.
Makes a big difference when you have different types of investments that are not as liquid.
Yes.
You wouldn't want to sell a property just because you have to meet the requirements for the SMSF as a pensioner.
Yep, no, that's right.
That's
so
interesting.
there's definitely a bit of strategic planning required as you enter retirement phase of your life.
So you're going to have that phasing up from 4 to 5% into 7% draw on your super. So you got to make sure you plan for that as well.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, maybe not us, not just
yet.
Okay, let's talk about something else. I don't really have too much knowledge on this, but I'm sure Division 296. I know that that's kicked in, that's happening. What does that change anything for what we're discussing now? I mean, it's related to super.
So Div 296 it's an additional tax on super funds with balances greater than $3 million.
Interesting.
So the reality is it doesn't actually apply to the vast majority of Australian investors.
Well, not the ones who haven't invested in Bitcoin. Not financial advice, but yes.
Yeah. So so it doesn't really apply to most Australian investors. So I think people who are thinking about an SMSF and might be concerned about this new Div 296 tax, I think the reality is what they really should be focusing on first is, wealth accumulation rather than, worrying about a tax that might not even apply to them.
Or you've got an SMSF that has a higher balance above $3 million, I believe. Is there anything there that we should be aware of in order to optimize tax positions for an SMSF, or is it all pretty much black and white?
Yeah, well, I guess just to explain Div 296 at a very high level. So Div 296, it's an additional 15% tax on earnings between $3 million and $10 million. So that would bring the effective tax rate on the earnings in that bracket to 30%. And then any earnings over $10 million, there's an additional 10% tax on top of that, bringing the effective tax rate on earnings above $10 million to 40%.
Got it.
So any earnings below that $3 million threshold is still taxed at the normal rates of 15%. So only the proportionate amounts above $3 million to 10, which is where the additional tax applies.
Again, it sounds like the government wants you to hold no more than $3 million in your SMSF, or I guess your super fund in general, in order to take advantage of tax benefits. Is that kind of like what this is for?
Yeah.
Does it feel that way?
Yeah, I think Div 296 is broadly in line with the government's sort of policy direction in reducing tax concessions on wealth accumulation. And they really want superannuation to be there as a vehicle to support your retirement rather than
an investment vehicle.
Exactly, rather than to create an indefinite, investment vehicle for tax-free earnings.
Wild question for you. With the direction that we have with fiat currencies, with AUD as such, do you feel that the value of money inside your SMSF at, let's say when we retire, do you feel that $3 million is going to be enough for us to retire at our retirement age? I know that it's a lot of money, but is it a lot of money in the future with everything that's happening? I don't know.
I think $3 million by the time we hit retirement age won't be much at all, given the amount of debasement that's been going on in the last few decades.
That's what I'm worried about too.
Yep. So there is indexation that applies to the $3 million cap. So that $3 million amount should increase as the years go on.
That's it. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate your insights. And until next time.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.